So I've had my Lumix S9 now for around 12 months, and today I just want to get into how I think this is the best deal you can get in photography right now. So currently here in the UK, you can pick this camera up for around £800, and that's with the 20 to 60mm lens included as well. And I just think for that price, that kit is such a good value for money. I think it's great for beginners and professionals alike because it's got a lot of features in there that are helpful for beginners, but then it's also a really feature stacked camera as well, so it can handle a lot of jobs that you throw at it. Now, I'm not going to dive into the specs too much in this video. I'm going to save that for other channels that do deeper dives into the technical specs. I just want to talk about my user experience as a solo creator filming for YouTube. Also, I've just started filming and it is now pouring down outside and the rain is absolutely battering the window, so if you can hear rain noise, I do apologize. This is also the second time I'm filming this video, so I hope it goes all right. I messed up my last video by not plugging my microphone in, so yeah, lesson learned. Anyway, I will dive right into the video experience of this camera first. So this camera is such a capable video camera, and I just think it could handle most jobs that you throw at it. Now that starts with the autofocus for me. That is something that I needed to be reliable because I do a lot of filming to camera like this. So as a solo creator, I really need reliable autofocus when I'm filming pieces to camera like this because I don't have someone to check focus behind the camera. And I've not had any issues really to speak of when I've been filming with the Lumix S9. The only one issue I had is in my recent video where I was talking about the Kodak Charmer, I did notice that in this setup right now with the window behind me, it did kind of hunt a little bit. You could see it breathing, especially in the corners of the video. Now, I'm not too sure why this happened because I did have the face and eye detection on, but yeah, it just seemed to hunt in the background. And I don't know if that's because I've been backlit so much that it kind of like confused the camera a little bit, but that is only really the main issue I've had with autofocus. Even when I'm doing all of my product shots for any items that I'm reviewing, it's been really stellar autofocus. Like, it keeps the product in frame. And yeah, I've just not really had any issues apart from the one I've just spoke about. Another really good feature of this camera is the in-body image stabilization. It is so handy for someone like me who tries to travel really minimal. So I feel like I'm getting gimbal-like shots when I'm reviewing products. And that's just all down to the IBIS that's in this camera. And I do think Panasonic deserve a lot of credit for their image stabilization because it's stellar and it's super handy. Like I say, for someone who doesn't want to carry like a gimbal around with me, I don't want to carry a handle around like a hot shoe handle to pan the camera. I literally just do it all handheld, no extra accessories, and it's just been superb. And then I think one of the highlight features for this camera is the 6.2K open gate. Now, I know open gate is kind of overhyped these days. It gets a lot of attention online, and if a camera releases and it doesn't shoot open gate video, everyone just poo-poos it in the comments and stuff. So it is a little bit overhyped, and I don't think it's something that necessarily most people need. But for me, it's been quite handy because what I've been doing is I will shoot in the open gate mode and I'll then kind of like reframe my composition slightly in post. So if I'm out in the field, sometimes it's a little bit tricky to kind of see what your shot looks like on the little LCD screen. So I'll shoot the open gate just so I've got that extra headroom just to have myself centered or have my subject centered in frame. And if it was a little bit off when I was filming in camera, like I say, I've just got that option to move up or down. And it's just really handy for that, to be fair. Also, if you shoot a lot of content that you need for like long form content like YouTube and then social media, you can shoot in open gate and then you can easily crop a 16:9 and a 9:16 out of that frame just because it's more square. So you've got just that little bit more room to maneuver and top and bottom when you are cropping for 9:16. I've also found the Panasonic V-Log to color grade like really easily for me. Now, I don't have much experience in color grading in DaVinci Resolve. I'm quite new to it all. So having a camera that can color grade really easily is super nice for me. So what I've been doing recently is I've been using a LUT from Tyler Stallman just to convert my image initially. And then I've been doing my exposure tweaking, any bit of white balance stuff that I need to do. And then I'll add a film look creator filter at the end just to add a little bit more of a filmic look. And yeah, basically these days I'm color grading in like 5 or 10 minutes if I've not got like loads of clips, especially for a clip like this where it's just like one single clip of me in the office. I can color grade those really easily. And that's really nice because before this I was shooting on an Osmo Pocket 3 for most of my content. And I was struggling to color grade it in tricky lighting, especially in this office right here, because we've got dark green walls. So sometimes the lighting can be a bit tricky. And yeah, I just found the Osmo Pocket really tricky to color grade and to get the look that I wanted. Whereas with the S9, straight out the gate, even before I was using LUTs, I was able to change the log footage to Rec 709, add in a few exposure and color tweaks, and I could get a look that I was really happy with like pretty quickly. So yeah, all credit to the Vlog and the sensor and color science from Panasonic here. It's super easy to color grade. Now the S9 does have support for the Lumix LUTs as well, but I will dive into this a little bit more in the photography section because I do think it's more suited towards the photography. But if you don't want to color grade your footage and you just want to record clips for social media, you can put some creator made LUTs onto your footage and then it just is pre-baked in, and yeah, you can get like a nice look without having to do all of the color grading. And if you just want to shoot for social media, the Lumix S9 has a MP4 light mode, and that tops out at 3.2K, but it has a really small file size and it allows you to transfer footage from the camera directly into the Lumix Labs app, and you can do a little bit of editing in there and just post straight to social media. So it's a really quick workflow for anyone who just wants to put some nice quality footage on their stories or Instagram Reels or something like that. And yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier on, how this is kind of suited towards beginners because of features like that. Now, when it comes to the resolution options, like Lumix have a absolute ton of different options that you can choose from. And it is a little bit overwhelming, to be honest, when you see the full list. And I do think they could tweak the menu slightly to kind of give you less options, or maybe if you was never going to use some options, you could turn them off, so just so you've not got a huge list. When it comes to overheating, I've had no issues here either. So I've been filming in the office in summer and we get a lot of like sunlight coming in the afternoon, so it gets quite hot in here. I've done 30-40 minutes of filming and I've had no warnings about the overheating. I've also took the camera out midsummer, just shooting out in the field, and it's been absolutely fine. I've had no warnings whatsoever. Obviously, I can't speak for more humid and hotter climates. You might have a bit more of an issue out there, but for me personally, the overheating has just been non-existent. And all of the footage that I've been getting from this camera has been so nice. I feel like it's really elevated my YouTube channel. I think I'm really happy with a lot of the videos that I put out now. I just feel like the colors look really nice and the footage just looks really high quality. So yeah, this camera's just like taken my videography up a notch, and it's just so crazy to me that this camera only cost me £1,000, like this whole setup. And yeah, I just think, again, for that price, like, there's not much that competes with it. Now the Lumix S9 isn't just great at video, this is a really good hybrid camera, and the photo quality of this camera is really good as well. There's just not too much to speak about though, to be fair, because like most cameras on the market these days, sharpness is really good, autofocus is really good when it comes to photography, the files are really nice to color grade. It's just, I've not had any issues with it, to be fair. As I say, I've found the files, like the raw files, to be really easy to like manipulate and get the look that I want. The only issue I've found is the Lumix color science kind of tends to oversaturate the reds a little bit, but you can just bring the saturation down ever so slightly in your editing software of choice, and then it looks really natural. So yeah, I've not really had any issues when it comes to editing the photos on this camera. Dynamic range performance is really, really good. I've always been able to pull back skies if I wanted to on a bright day. And yeah, like I said, there's just not much to really speak about here. It's just a really solid photographic camera. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can use Lumix LUTs in the Lumix Labs app. And in there, there's a lot of LUTs that creators have made, and you can apply those to your video, but you can also apply them to your photos. And these work in a very similar way to the Fujifilm recipes that Fujifilm has. And yeah, these are just a nice way to have a look baked into your JPEGs, especially if you don't like doing all of the editing that comes afterwards with RAW files. This is just a really nice, simple option. Again, like how the Fujifilm cameras are doing with their Fujifilm recipes. Now, personally, I've not used these LUTs too much because I find it a little bit like tedious to set up. And I also would rather I edited myself from a RAW file. I just find that when you use these JPEG like color options that are baked in, sometimes if the weather changes and it doesn't quite suit that look that you've got switched on at the moment in the camera, I find that it can kind of like ruin the shots. I know on my old X-T5 I tried using a Fujifilm recipe and the whole images from that days of shooting were kind of ruined and I didn't like them, but because they were already so stylized, I couldn't even pull them back in editing either. So I just tend to really use just the raw options and then go and edit myself. But like I say, if you're a beginner out there and you don't want to mess around with editing, the LUTs is a really strong feature, and that's why a lot of the Lumix cameras are quite popular at the moment. And like I say, in the Lumix Labs app, there's tons of different LUTs in there, and I have saved quite a lot in there, but I've just, like I say, not set up my camera for the LUTs because my custom modes are already like set up for different things, so I've just not got much room for custom modes with the recipes on there as well. So it has all been quite positive, this review up to now, but let's get into some of the downsides and some of the annoyances and some of the things that put a lot of people off this camera. So the first one for me is the lack of a viewfinder. Now, obviously I knew this going into the purchasing this camera that this didn't have a viewfinder, and my thought process at the time was I had a Ricoh GR and I was really enjoying the experience of shooting with that camera. So then I was like, okay, I wouldn't mind my main camera being a smaller camera that's a bit like the Ricoh in terms of its shooting style, but it was more of a full frame thing and it was like a hybrid camera. So that's what led me to purchasing this camera. And to be honest, I've not really had much of an issue with it. I have enjoyed working with it, but recently I've started to really miss having a viewfinder. So there's been a couple of trips. One in particular was last year I was doing some content for TT Artisan with one of their manual lenses that they sent me. And I really enjoyed the experience of using a manual lens on the S9, but I noticed that I was struggling trying to get focus right with focusing from a rear LCD. Now it does have focus peaking and there's a few different levels of focus peaking, but I was still missing shots even with the focus peaking enabled. So yeah, I just feel like that experience would have been a lot nicer if I had a viewfinder. And then just overall, like some of my recent trips, I've just kind of felt a little bit disconnected from the camera just because I'm like holding it and just looking at what's going on through the rear LCD rather than EVF. So yeah, I am starting to struggle with the lack of a viewfinder or EVF. So the second issue I have, and this kind of will tie into the viewfinder chat as well, this camera lacks a hot shoe. It only has a cold shoe on the top of the camera. What this means is you can't use any hot shoe accessories that you normally would on most cameras. And where this ties into the viewfinder chat is, I think if they had put on a proper hot shoe, I think Panasonic could have then released a optional viewfinder that connected to the hot shoe that then could have relayed information into it, and it could have been this like little EVF accessory, and yeah, it would have been a nice option to have because then it was like you could remove it if you didn't want it on one day if you were just going shooting out video and stuff. So I think they've missed a trick there where they could have had a hot shoe and then released an optional accessory EVF or viewfinder. And then another weird thing is Panasonic have just announced a microphone that attaches to the hot shoe that speaks to Lumix cameras. And it seems like a really good option for solo creators like myself and vloggers and people like that. And this camera was aimed at vloggers with its initial launch. So the fact that this S9 can't use that microphone is so weird to me. So I do think they've really missed the mark by not including a hot shoe. Obviously, I understand this camera is very small for a full frame camera, but yeah, it's just how much bigger would it have been if they put a hot shoe in there? Maybe a couple of millimeters taller? I don't think anyone would have noticed, and I think we would have all been a lot happier if it had a hot shoe. Because as well, you can't use any external flashes like strobes or anything, or top mounted flashes if you want to use any flash photography. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame really. Another slightly annoying thing for me is the lack of small L-mount lenses that are currently on the market. So I've recently purchased the 18 to 40 millimeter lens, and this is quite a small option. So what happens is it's quite compact when you're not using it, and then when you want to use it you have to extend it, and that's 18 millimeters there, and then it goes all the way out to 40 millimeters, and it doesn't really move much when you're going through that range. But then when you want to put it back in your bag, you just twist it and then it collapses down into this small little package, and that is great and it is a nice option. But one of the issues is it's an f4.5 to 6.3, which means it's not great in low light, and it also doesn't give you that shallow depth of field in the lower apertures that you would normally get with a full frame lens. So it would be nicer to have a few more smaller lens options. I think this camera is really screaming out for a small pancake lens. I think that would suit it so well, but I'm assuming the physics of the full frame sensor and how compact it all is and how close it is to the mount, maybe it's not possible. But yeah, it's a shame that we've not seen a pancake lens yet. Apart from that weird f8 manual focus lens that they launched this camera with, really weird lens. Yeah, I know there's a few prime lenses coming out from some of the third-party manufacturers, and they do look fairly compact. I've just not tended to use any. I know the Sigmas are good, but anything coming from Viltrox and TT Artisan, I've not really tried them too much. And I've tried a TT Artisan lens on my XM5, and it was terrible for video autofocus, so I've not really dove into that market for the Lumix cameras. So it'd be interesting to let me know in the comments if you've got any of those lenses. Are they any good at video? So a few other little tidbits. It only has one SD card slot, so yeah, you don't have that backup option just in case anything goes wrong. I've not had any SD cards fail on me in my entire career in photography, and I've been photographing now since 2012. Never had an SD card fail on me, but it literally only takes that one time for it to ruin your whole day. So it would be nice if it had a second SD card slot. And then the last point, and this hasn't really been much of an issue for me, but I know it can be an issue for a lot of people, and that is it doesn't have a mechanical shutter. What that means is you get a lot of rolling shutter if you're doing any fast movement in video, or if you're tracking a fast moving subject in photo. So yeah, you'll just get that like warping and banding if you like are shooting fast motion with this camera. Also, if you're someone who shoots a lot at night, or you shoot a lot around fluorescent lighting, I've heard that can be an issue, and you can get banding because of the shutter speed not being able to match the flickering of the lights. I've not had any issues with that, but that's because I don't really shoot in those scenarios, so it's just something to keep in mind. The only downside that I've experienced with the mechanical shutter is just when it comes to like a user experience, you just don't have that nice mechanical click because it's an electronic shutter. It just doesn't make a nice sound. Well, it doesn't make any sound really, unless you've got the like speaker on with an artificial sound. You know, the overall experience, it's just not quite as nice and as pleasant to use as something with a mechanical shutter. And then as we're just rounding off these bad points, I will say that there's no grip on the camera here. As you can see, it's just kind of like a flat rectangle. And I can see why for certain people with bigger hands that can be a bit of an issue, but there is a thumb grip on the back here where you just rest your thumb. And for me, it's been all right. I've used this for long periods of time, and I just usually hold it like this with my thumb on the little thumb rest at the back there, and then I just kind of like grip the little flat side there, and it's been fine. I can imagine if you've got like a really heavy front lens, like it would be annoying, but yeah, I've not been using any lenses like that, and I've not really had much of an issue. But if you do want a little grip here, I know Small Rig launched one in collaboration with Lumix at the time of launch, and then there's some other companies out there these days that have little grips that go on, and it's like an Arca Swiss plate on the bottom. So yeah, if you do want a grip, there are options out there. And then just talking about the controls, really, I've not really had much of an issue with them. You've got a front control dial here, and unfortunately that is the only one on the top of the camera. The extra dial on the rear of the camera is this little scroll wheel here. A lot of people have an issue with this. I think a few of them have broke in the past. I've not had any issues with durability with mine, but I will say it doesn't really feel that nice to use. It would have been nice if we could have had an extra control dial on the top. Then right here you have your mode selector, and I have just kept this in C1, C2, C3. They're my custom settings that I've set up, and my C1 is photo, C2 is all of my video stuff, and then C3 is my slow-mo video settings. And I just flick between the three of those depending on what I'm doing at that moment, and it's just really easy to switch through. And then, yeah, it's ready to go no matter what I need to do. All the rest of the buttons are fine. The only issue I had in the beginning was this record button here. I kept accidentally pressing it when I was doing photography, because the exposure compensation button is here as well. So they're right next to each other, hard to differentiate. So I was doing loads of like random clips every now and then. What I ended up doing is just disabling this button completely. So if I do accidentally press it now, I don't record any clips. I have got used to the placement now, so it's not quite as bad, but yeah, I was pressing that a lot in the beginning. You've got a fully articulating screen, it can face forward and all that. It's a great little screen. I've not got any issues with seeing it outdoors. It's pretty good in bright daylight as well. And yeah, I've really enjoyed using the camera, to be honest. Even with its shortcomings, I've just found it a joy to use. And like I say, for YouTube and solo content creation, I think it's just amazing for the price. So yeah, as I was saying earlier on in the video, I think it's great for beginners because of all the options that you get with the LUTs and the Lumix Labs app and the lighter MP4 Lite codecs that you can use, so everything's not high res. You can transfer stuff to your phone quite easily, upload to social media like really quickly. Like if you've got a LUT on that you like and you're shooting an MP4 Lite, you can quickly record a clip, send it to your phone and have it on social media in probably like 5-10 minutes. So it's really good for beginners like that. But then I know that you could just throw this at loads of different video like jobs and it wouldn't let you down at all. So it's a great B cam. It's even a good A cam. Like I've used it for all my stuff on YouTube for the past few months and I've loved it. So yeah, I think that's all I've got to say really. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do let me know if you've picked the Lumix S9 up, what your experience has been like, or if you're still thinking about picking one of these up. Like I say, at the price, like if you're looking at one, it's a no-brainer. I think you should just go and get it. There's a lot of funky colors out there now as well, and the titanium one in particular looks really nice. So yeah, I highly recommend it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing, leave a like on the video as well. It really helps the channel out, and I will catch you guys in the next one.